Welcome back. Let's find out how to make this sign in with Google button actually do something. All right, Google uses OAuth to handle credentials. So let's talk a little bit about what that means in terms of the flow, because that's going to help us give us framework for the kind of code that we're going to have to write. So first thing is, and the first step is to handle sign in, right? So our app is going to have to talk to Google. We're going to do that through an intent, just to make sure that our user is signed in. Okay. Second, all right, we're going to also send another request to Google, and we're going to say, hey, Google, would you give me a token, right, that I can use for this session so that I can authenticate with Firebase. And so we're going to fire off actually an async task to do that. And it's going to come back, and when it finishes, we take our token and we're going to fire it over to Firebase. Okay. And Firebase is then sort of behind the scenes, so our app doesn't see this, but Firebase is going to use that client ID that we gave it earlier, right? And it's going to use that to verify the token. So it's going to say, hey Google, did you really issue this token, to this person? And it will come back and it will say, sure, yeah, absolutely, I did, right? So that's going to keep it from anyone else trying to generate a false token to try to spoof who we are. It's going to send that back to Firebase, and then finally Firebase will come back with the JOT, and we'll be ready to go with authentication, and it will give us a Google user ID and plus some other information if we wanted to use it. Okay. All right, so we have good news and bad news. You probably hint at what the bad news is here, but let's talk about the good news first. Is that once you get that token, then signing someone in is basically the same as logging in with email password, right? So there's really no difference after that. So you're still going to have an auth result handler, and you're going to have an auth method, and that's going to be fairly straightforward. Okay. The bad news is you saw all of those paths and everything. So we're going to have to write some code that's going to handle that. So the code is going to break up into a few different stages. So the first is we're going to do some work in onCreate to set up a Google API client. Second, we're going to sign in, all right, via an intent. Third, when that intent returns, so in an activity result, we're going to launch, I spelled it wrong here, we're going to launch an async task to get a token, right? And then finally, when we get to when that guy finishes executing, then we actually do the login, right? So the easy part sort of comes at the end. Let's do it. So the first thing is the Google API client. So we need to make sure that we've set up some sign-in options to actually do the request. Okay. Google recently simplified this quite a bit. So while you're looking at a bunch of code here, it's way simpler than what it used to be for this. So you should have this in your starting code, but if you're going to do another project, you wonder where does it get all the includes from and everything. So you're going to have to modify your build.gradle to include this. I think even the latest is even newer than that if you want to use it. Okay, so we're going to make some Google sign-in options right here, and then pass these sign-in options to make a Google API client, right? So these are using the builder pattern, right? So we have our builder. We're going to be able to request an email and then build it. And then for the API client, again, we have a builder as well here. We're enabling this auto manage, which is what makes things so easy for us, because it's going to manage all the sign-in dialogues and all that kind of stuff. And then we have an API here, so there's a constant for that, and then we build that guy. And this is all going to be used a little bit later when we get our token. Okay, so go ahead and type this in. I'm going to do the same thing right now. Good. So you're required to type it the first time. After that, you can copy and paste. All right. So I'm going into my main activity, and let's see. I'm going to do this right in anywhere up here I could. Okay. So let's see. So we've got Google sign-in options. Make my variable just Google sign-in options, and this is going to be a new Google sign-in options.builder, and we're just going to string together a whole bunch of dots here. So I'm going to put them each on a different line. So Google sign-in options.default sign-in is what we're going to use for that first parameter to the builder. Okay, and if you want to see what that is, it's just there, and then we will say request email dot build. Okay. You can see this isn't something that I've done that often. Certainly don't have it memorized or anything like that. I'm going to need a Google API client, and that is going to be a new Google API client. This guy right here is also, we're going to use the .builder option, and this is going to take my activity as a context, and then I'm going to enable the auto manage. Okay, so again, that's very good. And for our on connection failed and unresolved connection listeners, I'm going to pass in the activity itself. We'll have to write a couple of short methods to implement that interface shortly. We're going to add an API, and the API that we're going to use is going to be a constant here. So you see that we have auth, which is part of Google Play Services. So auth.Google sign-in API, and then that's where we pass in our sign-in options. Google sign-in options, and then we're going to take and build that guy. Okay, so let's fix a couple things here. So first of all, we need a field for this. So Alt-Enter on this and create the field. And yep, it inferred the correct one appropriately. And then for the second one here, so we passed in this. So let's hit Alt-Enter on this guy, and it says, do you want main activity to implement this connection failed listener? And yes, we do. So we'll go ahead and click OK there, and we will see that up top that added the interface, and then we can go in here to see when the connection failed. I've yet to have the connection fail on me. Of course, I've been in some pretty good development environment and testing. So, but it's good to put a log in here at the very least, right? So on connection failed, and then I'm going to pass in the connection result get error message. So something like that. Okay. All right, and that's our first stage. We've got stage 0 done. We've got a Google API client. Okay. Boom. Next thing is we need to sign in, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our on GoogleLogin function right here, and we're going to start an activity that is going to be a sign-in intent. So you notice that this is not an intent that we've written. This is very much part of Google's framework. We're going to pass in this Google API client, and then we're going to start an activity with that. You'll have to make the request code if you don't have it already. Remember, whenever we start an activity for result, like we learned a few weeks ago, you need to give it a request code so we can check to see if it's the same one when we're in on activity result. So wherever you'd like to put that, I'm putting my stuff here down in the on GoogleLogin. All right, so we'll say done. Haha. Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm going to make an intent, and this intent here, intent equals auth dot, and it's Google sign-in API. Make sure you get the right one. So there's a capital and a lowercase version. It is the lowercase one right here. It's a class. Get sign-in intent, and you'll notice that this guy again takes an API client. So pass in your field there, so as so, and then you can start an activity for result, and again intent and request code. So we'll pass in that intent, and I'm going to make a request code. So I don't know, request code, I forget what I used in the slides here, whether I wrote it out or not. Request code Google login, something like that. And I want to make that field. So Alt-Enter, create a constant field for this guy. and it makes it private static final int. Int is the correct type, and then the value is just going to be 1. Okay, again, like we did before. All right, good. So that guy is going to go ahead and try to log us in. And let's see, let me get myself back down there. You remember every time that we start an activity for a result, we need a callback to handle the completion of it. So I'm going to have my onActivity result right here, and that's going to come back with a request and a result, and then some data payload that is given back to us. So what is going to go in there? Oops. So if it's the request code that we were talking about, it looks like I used a slightly different name here, then we're going to get the result, all right, and see if it's successful. If it is, then we get we pull the account out of that, right? So here's my sign-in account, and from that I can pull out an email address. So all this to get my Gmail address essentially, but that's what I'm going to need to get the OAuth token. All right, so let's go ahead and do this and extract our email address. All right, so on activity result, again, you probably want to guard this with your request code. Make sure you have the right one. So if request code equals request code GoogleLogin, then we're going to go ahead and get a result here. So it is a Google sign-in result, and we call this here, so just result, and that's, I'm calling auth.googlesigninAPI, oops, dot, and I'm going to get sign-in result from intent, and if I pass in this data payload, that's basically going to turn that intent back into a result for us. Okay, so result can be successful or not, right? So let's go ahead, and if it is successful, right, then we want to get from this, we want to get the sign-in account. So this is of type Google sign-in account, like so, something like that. And then we can do things to the account, like we can get, right, so you'll notice, ooh, this is interesting, right? So we can get an email. That's worth looking at, right? So there's get, you could get your display name if you wanted to. You get a photo URL, right? So the Google Plus, the URL of the Google Plus photo. So some pretty neat stuff there, right? If we wanted to use it. So this guy right here, I'm just going to call email address, like so. And then I'm going to call get Google OAuth token. So this is a method that we have not yet written yet, and I'm going to pass in that email address. Right, and the code that we've written right here together is what we need for stage 1, right? So essentially to sign into Google and to make sure we're good there. So now we have our account information. Now we're ready to go ahead and get the token. Right? Good. Now, who makes this stuff up, right? So we're not figuring all this out from scratch. So we're getting it from somewhere. Firebase has a very good login demo that has, like, I mean, it's so if you follow this guy, it's a GitHub repo, right? So this is going to bring you in, and they give you plenty of code to see what's plenty of code to use as an example, right? To see how they do their Google login. All right, so basically, so Tyler went in, checked things out, did some changes and everything, not that much, and then he posted some code for us, right? So kind of handy. All right, so going to get the gist here, brings me to this location, and he's got a nice little method for us. So let's go ahead, and I will let you copy this because we never even typed that once. A bunch of sort of generic stuff here. So I'm gonna put this guy into my project, and that is this method here. So right underneath this, paste. and we'll see we have get Google OAuth token. Looks like we spelled it right. We just need to add in a an email address parameter. Okay. So what does this do, right? So we have an async task that kicks off in the background. So what we're seeing here is the actual call to Google, and we have something called a scope here. We're passing in our email address, and we're calling get token. So this is really the most important line right here. Pretty much everything else has to do with exception handling. Right? It doesn't like that because if you want to pass this in, it needs it to be final. So go ahead and make that guy final. Let's see. So let's see. Part of the recovery is to go ahead and fire this guy off again. So I'm going to change that there just so it matches up. And then I've got an on post execute that I've got to run. So by the time that it completes, right? So it goes ahead and it's going to set the token here, right? That we're returning. So that's going to be sort of the result from what's happening in the background. When it's complete, then it's going to call on post execute, and it's going to pass that token through, right? So kind of neat. We'll go ahead and we'll print that guy out and see what we get. All right. So actually, what you get, right? So you get some kind of crazy long token like this. So this is the token that we're going to use to log into Firebase, right? So let's go ahead and write this in here. So on post execute, we're just going to be calling in yet another method because we just want to check to make sure that we actually got one. So token shouldn't be null, but if it is, we'd want to show a login error. All right. So let's see. And if you want to see what your token looks like, feel free to print it out. That's how I got the one on the slide. So token like so. All right, very good. So if token, if token not equal to null, right? So then what we're actually going to do, so there's another method here that we've stubbed in that assumes that we have a token. So we're going to call that method on GoogleLogin with token. Again, that's our code, and we're going to pass the token through like so. And otherwise, there is a show login error, that method that we would call, and we would pass in an error message, right? And for this, the error message was set in the first part of this. Okay, so I'm going to pass that guy through. Like so. And it looks like I inadvertently deleted a close brace there when I did that. Okay, yeah, it looks good. Very nice. So that's the sort of boilerplate, or I guess stuff that we're copying from elsewhere. The rest of it is actually pretty straightforward here to log the user in with the Google OAuth token, and that is going to follow a very similar pattern as our on login up here. In fact, I'm even going to copy and paste this guy to use as a reference. So this was just out of the email password login. So like I said earlier, once we get the OAuth token, it's gonna be very similar. Okay. So what are we gonna do? So we're going to Firebase auth with. Now we don't have it's not auth with password anymore. It's gonna auth with a custom token. And you see that this takes a provider. It takes a token itself, and then it takes a handler, right? So our provider is going to be Google. We'll pass that guy in as a string. The second thing was our token itself, so our OAuth token parameter. And finally, we need a handler. And honestly, I can use the same one, so I don't know why I just didn't copy that guy. Would have been faster, like so. All right, and I'll comment that out, and we can see some of the similarities there, but it's very, very similar to what we did before. Okay, so this is the part with the token. We fire it over to Firebase. Firebase checks with Google, make sure it's okay, and then it's gonna call the callback within this handler once it's done with essentially this Java Web Token, right? So what was in there again? So there was this unauthenticated, assuming it's a success. It's going to switch to the password fragment, and again, it's used the Google information to create auth data, and auth data itself has a UID. Okay. So like so. Run it. Okay, so I ran this in the background, and I'm still logged in to one of my email password accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and log myself out of there, and this time I'm going to hit my sign in with Google button. All right, and that should wait for a little bit. I might even bring up a little empty dialog here, and then let's see, and log you in. So I have logged in to this before. And set things up. For you, it's probably going to ask you for permission the first time. I've already gone through that stage, right? So so pretty neat. So we can, again, we're seeing that we have a new part of Firebase. So let me go ahead here and service. I don't know what I want to put. I'll store my Firebase password inside the Google stuff. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? I'm getting a little bit punchy. Okay, I don't know what my password is. Small. So yeah, sounds great. Click OK here. And what I want to do is go into the Forge to actually see what it made. So yeah, let's close this guy back up and go into the Forge and see what we got in here. And what it actually made for us here was a new Google user. And you'll see it's showing up here were my other ones. So my passwords, these are the ones that I made within the other account. Okay, so these are email password accounts. And this is my Google account. You see it's pretty easy to recognize, being prefixed by Google here. Same kind of information that we had in the other ones. And actually, as I look back in the Forge, I see that I actually had some other stuff. I had made these before we did anything with authentication. So these shouldn't be here anymore. Passwords should only live within users. So I'm going to blow these away. So yes, I want to remove that guy. And yes, I want to remove that guy. Great. And so now I only have just my 3 users, and we'll go on from there. Next time we will do, we'll come back and we'll take a look at doing authentication with Rose-Hulman credentials using the Rose Fire library. See you later.